Welcome to Learn About Law. My name's Kevin O'Flaherty from O'Flaherty Law, and today we're going to talk about your rights during a traffic stop. Let's first talk about when police have the right to even pull you over for a traffic stop. The Fourth Amendment prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures, and traffic stops constitute a seizure within the meaning of the Fourth Amendment. So this means that the police have to have specific and articulable facts that give rise to a reasonable suspicion that a crime has been committed. So things like erratic driving or violation of traffic laws can give rise to this reasonable suspicion. And by crime, we're not just talking about things like drug possession, but even just violation of traffic laws constitutes a crime here. So next, let's talk about whether you have to answer questions during a traffic stop. So at a traffic stop, you do have to provide your driver's license, proof of insurance, and registration if the officer requests it, but you don't have to answer any other questions. The Fifth Amendment protects you against self-incrimination, so you shouldn't answer questions like, how fast were you going and where are you headed? However, rather than boldly asserting your Fifth Amendment rights, what you should do is politely and calmly refuse to answer the question so as not to escalate the situation. Answering the question is not an admission of guilt. So, and not in every situation should you refuse to answer the question. If you were going 10 miles over the speed limit, maybe it's worth just answering the officer's questions in order to avoid escalating this into something worse. Let's talk about the right to refuse consent to a search of your vehicle. So there's two situations in which a police officer has the right to search your vehicle. One is if the officer has probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed, and the other is if you consent to the search. So absent probable cause, the police officer doesn't have the right to search your vehicle without your consent. So if the police officer searches your vehicle anyway and overrides your consent and they don't have probable cause, your attorney may be able to have any evidence that they find of any wrongdoing, no matter how damning it is, thrown out if they wrongly search your vehicle without your consent. Refusal to consent to search your vehicle is not an admission of any guilt. So let's talk about what constitutes probable cause for the police to search your vehicle. In order to have probable cause to search your vehicle, the police officer must have observed something that has led him or her to reasonably believe that a crime has been committed. So these are things like the smell of marijuana or alcohol, seeing drugs in the vehicle through a window, or an admission of guilt by yourself or one of the passengers in the car. Minor traffic violations, such as speeding or a broken taillight, do not give rise to probable cause to search the vehicle. So we've talked about whether you have to answer questions during a traffic stop and your right to refuse to consent to search the vehicle. We've focused mostly on the driver. Let's shift and talk about the rights of the passengers during a traffic stop. So passengers are not legally responsible for the violations of the driver, and the general rule is that passengers are free to leave at any time unless, based on the passenger's behavior or other circumstances, the police develop a reasonable suspicion that gives rise to probable cause to suspect the passenger themselves has committed a crime. The officer has the right to ask the passengers to step out of the vehicle, and the officer may question each passenger separately. Differing answers among the passengers and the driver may give rise to probable cause to either detain the passengers or search the vehicle. So if you're a passenger at a vehicle and you've been pulled over, you don't just flee the scene. What you should do is ask the police officer if you're being detained or if you're free to leave, if you'd like to leave the vehicle. Next, let's talk about whether the police can frisk you at a traffic stop. So the police officer, like I said, can order you to step out of the vehicle, but in order to frisk you, they need to have probable cause, reasonable belief that you are carrying a weapon. So if an officer asks to frisk you, you have the right to refuse consent. You should verbally refuse rather than physically resisting the frisk because, again, we don't want to escalate the situation. But if you verbally refuse consent to a frisk and the officer frisks you anyway without reasonable probable cause that you have a weapon, then anything that the officer finds on your person may be able to be thrown out as evidence in court because, just like searching the vehicle, the officer either needs consent or probable cause to frisk you at a traffic stop. Let's again talk about when you're free to leave a traffic stop. Unless the officers choose to detain or arrest you based on probable cause that a crime has been committed, you have the right to leave at any time, just like the passengers. And again, just like your passengers, what you should do is ask the officer if you're being detained or if you're free to go. Don't just split and leave the scene. Finally, if you are arrested or detained during a traffic stop, first thing you should do is tell the officer that you're not going to answer any questions until you've spoken to an attorney, and immediately call an attorney. If you've watched any television procedural shows, you know this is the first thing that you should do. You have a right to an attorney, and you don't have to answer any questions without one there. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks so much for watching our video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Click the subscribe button for new videos every week, and download and review us on iTunes. Visit learn-about-law.com for other legal-related articles and videos. Visit our business podcast and video blog, seizeyourbusiness.com, and visit Making Real Estate Fun for real estate videos and podcasts. Call us at 630-324-6666 for a free consultation.